Welcome to B2B in Flux. This is where we dig into how marketing, sales, and buyers connect in today's B2B world. What's working, what's broken, and what's evolving.
Welcome to the B2B Influx podcast for marketers who want to understand the people and customers they're really selling to. In B2B software and tech marketing, we often talk about the buying committee or the decision-making unit. That's the CEO, the CFO, the CTO, the COO. We all know the deal is rarely one person. It's usually 6 to 10 stakeholders all pulling information in parallel. It's multi-threaded, change-driven process that often feels messy from the inside. But to the marketing team trying to reach them, those stakeholders don't always feel like real people. They stay as titles on a slide deck or a persona in a presentation. This podcast is a set of short conversations with the buying committee, the real people behind those roles that you're targeting. I want you to hear how they actually work day to day, the pressures they deal with, what they pay attention to, what they ignore, and which marketing content they genuinely consume when the decision is on the line. My goal is simple. It's to give you a clear edge and help you drop what doesn't work, double down on what does work, and refine your marketing and sales approach to how buyers really behave. Today, I'm joined by Kris Bondi. Kris is a CEO who's been involved in multiple tech and software negotiations throughout her career. We'll keep the chat informal and practical, focused on what buying looks like from her seat and what vendors get right and wrong when trying to win stakeholders in their position. So let's get into it. Kris, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so let's set the scene. What does your role look like today, and what kind of companies and problems have you spent most of your career around?
So I think every CEO's role is hopefully plays to their strength. I'm most valuable to my company when I'm the Pied Piper, and I am less valuable and maybe even frustrating at times when I am the overly operation focused. So the reality is my role is a bit of both, but I am very much the out and about person who is leading sales, but leading thought leadership, and also is the tip of the spear when it comes to finding new technologies.
Okay. When I say people, especially marketers, CEO, what do you think they usually assume about your role that just isn't true in practice, and what actually takes up your time and energy, and like what are your real priorities?
Um, I think that they think that and a lot of times they they think that I know the needs of my company much deeper than I do,
Mhm,
and they think um, that I'm a great way in the door, which I'm not always.
mhm. Interesting. So what is your day typically spent doing if it's not in the details of these decisions?
Um, so I may know that uh, I obviously know what my engineering team is working on, but in the intricate of a problem, I wouldn't necessarily know that. We're building a CI/CD pipeline. I would know that, um, but I wouldn't know that um, the DevSecOps that we're assessing is A or B. And so I think
Mhm,
that there is my day to day is spent so much on the big picture. The way that I think a good way of looking at it is if you're looking at a team in layers, there is the head of engineering is the person who is, and it could be the CTO or it could be a VP of engineering, is the person who uh, is like the foreman of a job site, understands
mhm,
how everything works together, understands what needs to be built, understands where people are. Go up to a helicopter level. Helicopter level is product and how different pieces fit together. And then you go up to where I am, which is at a satellite level. So I can see what's happening in the different levels. I'm working very closely with all. with both of them, but probably much more on the product level and understanding how we fit within an ecosystem. But it's also my job to see beyond the horizon, to see where we're going, to see what trends are happening that are both from a technology for us to be able to consume, as well as art, because we're a technology company, of, what we're building. Is there a future for that? How do we make sure that we're building for the future? And so I think if you look at it in those three spaces, I'm very much on that satellite view of the world.
And how are you specifically having those conversations? Is it you will come with a problem, or someone will come with a problem, and then the other executives will bring that problem, and then is it a face-to-face meeting where you're being critical and are looking for opportunities? Is it Slack messages? Like, how is that communication happening, and how regular?
So I have regular meetings which means 1 to 2 times a week, with definitely one formal meeting a week with the CTO or the CPO. But the reality is I'm probably in some type of ad hoc meeting other times that week with one or both of them together, as well as daily, multiple days, Slack. And it goes both ways. Often it is, if we stay in the CTO world, the CTO saying, oh, this is coming down. This, we're now looking at this problem, how we're going to address this problem. And, or we know, or the product person saying, on the roadmap, these are the things that we'll be addressing, or that we're assessing, or we're going to be assessing. And that's almost like giving me a, go out and find a directive. So I'm consuming a lot of analyst reports. I do a lot of research. You and I, before we started, talked about AI. I am using certain AI tools to do searches on, not to make decisions, but for me to gather the most information and to get summaries of it. And so that is, from a decision-making perspective, or from a buying perspective, I should say, I am often the person who is bringing new technology to say, does this fit the need that we have? Does this fit the, or in your planning, I know on the product roadmap, we're going to be addressing X. And in addressing X, will this, I understand the technology very deep to say, like, this seems to be addressing that. Will this be helpful? And so in those cases, it may be me then making an introduction, or suggesting that the product person reach out to or assess certain companies or a group of companies.
You mentioned that AI is a big part of your research role. Like, how has it changed how you research and form opinions? Like, are you able to find different information you weren't be able to before? Are you able to do comparisons the same? Like, specifically, like, how are you using it?
Yes, good question. Discovery and comparisons are very much in that spot. So it is, I may have heard of, say I've heard of your company, and your company sounds interesting. I may say, I may put into Claude, what are companies similar to somebody, sorry. What are companies similar to somebody? And, do a competitive analysis of it. And so all those things that would have taken much more time, but it's on the gathering and assessing stage. It is, I also, just from my background of being involved I used to do a lot of turnaround or help companies get acquired. So I used to come in, and I'm a research junkie. So there's a bit of the personal part in that, of I default to wanting to read everything and to understand technology really well. And so in those cases, it is, it's helping me get to the short list.
Mhm.
But it may also help me discover something that I wouldn't necessarily have found.
Mhm. Is it able to, are there any things that it can't shortcut in your research phase?
Oh, it is. I don't think it's quite the, it's not, it can help in that area. What it doesn't hit is anything on the relationship or the actually gathering the, I may be able to see, I may or may not be able to see deeper technology information, but I won't necessarily see how how well it is working with other tools. Because
Mhm.
ultimately in the gathering, it's only what's been put out there.
Mhm.
And so all I'm really getting is a faster way to the information that's already been published. So there's
Mhm.
huge gaps in truly understanding the product, understanding the product's roadmap of, it may be that I'll talk about our own. I can tell you my website's out of date without a doubt. I ran a competitive analysis about our company recently, and it wasn't that the information about us was incorrect. It was that there were significant gaps. Not surprising because those significant gaps matched what was missing from the website. In fact, it's something I would suggest marketers do is to periodically run competitive analysis on their companies to see what, what is missing from what is available externally.
Mhm.
And so I think that it's a good AI is a good starting place.
Mhm.
That's pretty much it. It's a good starting place, and then probably later down the road, when more questions come up, it's a place to jump into again to ask to get more analysis.
Mhm.
But in between there, there's a lot of if the human does it well, of where right now I think only a human
Mm.
can do it.
Interesting. You said something I just want to ask. You said that you enjoy researching tech and reading papers and things like that. I'm sure you know other CEOs in the kind of tech space. Is that common, would you say, for CEOs in your space, or is that a you thing?
Um, it is a place that I'm probably more unique. I think that if we would have gone back many, many years to when I started out, if I had known the term industry analyst, I may have been an industry analyst. I started as a reporter. I
Mhm.
just have I, I like to research. I like to, I spend a lot of time
Mhm.
analyzing companies and industries and trends for no reason whatsoever, except the fact that everyone has to have a thing that they're into. And what a weird thing for me to be into. I find that most
Interesting.
tech, yeah, I know. Interesting, sad, one of those. Um, I find that most CEOs I know either are former technologists or they are uh, more on the sales side. And then there's a
Mhm.
smattering that is on the product side. And the role I play is very much in a bit of the CPO, a bit of the CRO. So it's a little bit of both of those. Um, I disappointingly and surprisingly, I think sometimes when you have a CEO that wasn't a founder, they've come in as a hire in, if they have that CRO background, um, and they don't understand the technology as well
Mhm.
as I would expect them to.
Mhm.
I think it's also a size of company issue at
Mhm.
times where you get to a certain size company and they may not understand the deeper aspects of the technology. They clearly understand what their technology does. It's just the
Mhm.
how isn't always there. And frankly, it may
Mhm.
not always be necessary. It's just
Mhm.
again, I think it's a
My
preference of
my
mine.
my 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 reason in asking that question is at the start of the conversation when you're asking what the CEO cares about, and it's more kind of strategy and direction, but on a personal level, you kind of like to geek out on the tech. And I'm just thinking from a marketer's perspective, which is why I asked, do you
Yeah.
see this is similar? Like when creating content where you're trying to appeal to CEOs or help them, like,
Yeah.
should that still be leaning into the higher level, even though that you might have a personal interest in the tech?
I think that, so if you're marketing to me, I want to know what problem you're solving. So there's a difference between the analysis has to do with assessing, not with catching my interest. So, and it is very much on the strategy side, and it is very much strategy. And when it goes into operations, there's some really easy things. Is it going to make us faster? Is it going to make us our development faster? Is it going to make us is it going to save us time? Is it going to make us more secure? Is it going to you know is it going to save us money? Like, those are the things I care about. Flat out, those are what I care about. I know you have I think there are mistakes of people reaching out and talking to me about things that are too much in the weeds. And if it's too much in the weeds, I'm not a good lead in. I'm not a good lead in. Everyone's busy. So, but I can only speak for my version of busy. My version of busy is somebody reaching out to me to try to do a sale that's I'm an influencer. I'm not the decision maker. I should not be the decision maker of what our CTO is using. I can be involved in the process, but I'm not the decision maker. And reaching out to me to see if I could introduce you into the right person. If you are selling and you don't know how to use LinkedIn, then I become incredibly opinionated on good marketing. And so I shouldn't be the lead in the door. And particularly, I shouldn't be the lead in the door if you're telling me about something highly technical that you're selling to me as a highly technical way, instead of trying to sell it to me. What I care about is more of there should be a good summary that is a results focused summary to any piece I get.
If I think of all the marketing teams I've been involved in or clients I've seen in, what the logic there is, if a technical conversation comes up in a meeting and you have heard of X company, that you would throw it into the hat. Like, one, would you even do that? And I think it sounds like no. And two, if you did, how would your executives take that?
I know I just said no. The difference is if somebody was trying to get a meeting with me. If somebody was trying to get a meeting with me to talk about XYZ technology, that's going to be why are you wasting my time? But if it is something that I've read about, so if it's research, if it is a white paper or something of that sort, something that is consumable for me, I have said to our tech team, not even just an issue comes up, but me saying, I know you're going to be working on X. I saw this recently. Is this something that you should be talking to? Are these vendors you should be talking to? And in that way, that is the reason why I talked about the fact that I'm out and about much more than the tech team. Tech team is very much heads down. If they're doing research, they're probably doing research on things that are specific to our product and not necessarily the greater what vendors. The difference is I'm a good consumer of information, and that I will pass along. I'm not a good person to get a meeting with. One of the differences between when I've become a CEO and before was I've realized that the fastest way to a no is to ask me a direct question. So, and it truly is, particularly a direct question over LinkedIn. I,
And what's an
there's,
example of that? Like, can we have a meeting?
yeah, or, um, are you hiring engineers? There's a different title for that. If you think that I am in the if you think that I'm in the process of being, I'm in, if I'm involved in the hiring process, I am a downstream, one of the last meetings person. I'm not doing an assessment of the team ahead of time. I should not be assessing people up front.
Okay, interesting. So that's kind of a nice little lead on, because you've mentioned LinkedIn a few times. Where are you typically going to consume your content about and information about vendors? Is it LinkedIn, websites, blogs, case studies? You've mentioned analyst reports. Like, where do you go, and what kind of formats in particular resonate with you?
Um, Analyst reports usually that I get for free. In that, not that I'm in that, if somebody has a enter this information to download this report, that's golden. That's great. So that's a lot. So I look at those. Um, Articles may or may not be on LinkedIn. So I do look at content that is posted on LinkedIn. Uh, um, but honestly, that's probably more of it comes up in my feed, as opposed to if I'm actively looking for it. I'm doing a search that may be using Gemini or Claude, and gathering and then that leads me to blog posts. So it ends up being really analyst reports, blog posts, and news articles are the things. And that is often how I spend my weekends. Is, part of it is the writing I didn't get to during the week, and or the creating of whatever I needed to during the week, and the other part is articles. The other thing is podcast. I listen to a lot of podcasts. So while
Mhm.
I'm working throughout the day, I'm listening to podcasts. So I uh, don't I don't listen to them. If I'm in a meeting or if I'm writing, I will go back and forth with my while I'm doing it. But I probably consume. I'm just going to go with a ridiculous amount of hours of podcasts. So I think that, if I were to rank where I'm getting information from, podcast is often where I hear something new. And that leads me to then investigate the vendor, or it is or that I've done a search on a topic and I come across a vendor that way. Often when I said downloading analyst reports and it's a register to be able to do it, that's often how I found out about a vendor for the first time. They're either in the reports or they're the ones that have the download this to download or fill out this information to register to download. So that is how
So you
more than one vendor that we're using
do you
right now
have
I
an
found
issue
that
with
way.
do you have an issue then with gated content?
Um, I don't have an issue with gated content, but I will say as a marketer myself, I'm gating a lot less.
Mm,
So I think that the what you're gating for has really changed.
mm,
It used to be, and I was guilty of this, or I took this approach of almost everything was gated. And I now find that um, I don't have an issue with the analyst reports being gated. I um, But so much of it, seeing it on the blog first, getting enough that interests me that I don't have an issue with the gated is really where I am right now.
mhm. Yeah, it's funny. We were having that conversation internally that when we want to gate something, you should think you want the person to think, I cannot wait to give you my email for this content because it's so good, not feeling like they've been strong armed into it.
Oh, most definitely. I also have a lot of it's what happens at that meeting is actually where a lot of my um, concerns come up and frustrations come up.
Mhm. So, when you're comparing vendors offering similar solutions, what information actually helps you differentiate between them?
Um, there's the hard and the soft. So the hard ones are do they deploy well in our environment? Will they what customization is going to be needed or integrations are going to be needed for them? Those are all the hard ones. Can they actually solve can they actually solve what we need? If we assume that both of these solve the need, then it is going to be an ease of the integration. Interestingly, cost will come in there, but that's not the leading part. It really is the how well does it meet our needs, and can it meet our is it am I purchasing this vendor for knowing that I'm going to have to replace them in a year, or are they going to have a long, is it something that we can have a longevity with? And if it's something that we're going to have to, that we think they don't have the great for now, the great for now, they're the price point is fine for now. I don't know how they're going to be in a year. Then how painful is it going to be to integrate them will matter. So there's
Mhm.
that. I say the hard and the soft because the soft really comes down to, frankly, how they're selling to me.
Mm.
There is, I'll tell you about a vendor who we didn't purchase from, and it was two main sins that happened. Um, we we said that we wanted to do wanted to get an overview, and I've had this happen multiple times, which is the reason I bring this up. I want to have I in this case I had not the CFO, but I had the chief of staff on the call as well, because it was in an area that a project the chief of staff was working on, and we had set it up so that we could do we could see an overview of the product, and the person jumped in and was was pushing us ahead towards how cheap they could sell it to us, and trying to get in specifics of that. All I wanted to do was to see a demo. Like, we had
Mm.
requested a demo, and it was so oh, and we'll give you, we can get you into the trial in a week. And I don't care about the trial. I just want to see the overview. And the reality was, we could have gone overview and I would have purchased. And instead, because they were so fixated on their sales process, and their sales process was get somebody into a trial as soon as possible, they lost the full sale.
Mm.
Whereas if they had the disconnect between what they had said they were setting up the call for, and then the difference in between that, and I can't remember whether I think it was still the same person. So it wasn't like an SDR had set it up. It was the word usage. So what we thought we were going into, we were already using a competitor, so we already knew the overall space. You already know I have a budget because I'm already paying somebody else for it, and all I needed to do was to understand the product. And instead, they wanted to get me into their demo or into their POC, instead of just give me the thing that you said you were going to do. And they lost the sale. I ended up
Mm.
staying with the product we had because it was too painful to go through that. That's not an AI issue. That's a human issue.
Yeah, interesting. Do you think that was an inexperienced salesperson, or just the process of that company
I think it was the
causing
process
bad
of the
behavior?
company. I think it was the process of the company because the salesperson said that they had been with the company for 3 years. So I think
Yeah.
this is it was their process and their assumption. Their
Mm.
assumption was we were of a certain size, and this is how they work with. They had a startup phase or a startup tool, and so this is how they work with startups. And even when we called them on it and we said, we said that we were going to, we're really just interested in seeing your demo. We want to be able so we can have an internal discussion and make a decision. And it's like, oh, well, usually startups, and I'm like, well, that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for this, and still couldn't get out of there. This is the process we have. That's one. And then also, I think it ends up being that disconnect, because the other issue that's come up is um, when we have where somebody has convinced me to have a meeting, and then when I start the meeting, it ends up being, to me, it comes across as a bait and switch, and I think really it probably is a disconnect where it was an SDR that set it up, and the person who gets on the call is on a different talk track than what was said. I will say that I can't think of any time where I've actually purchased when that's happened.
That's pretty common as well, isn't it? The bait and switch. You sign up for a demo and it's the sales guy on the other side of it, not the product guy. That happens a lot in B2B.
Yeah, it does. But I think that there is, it comes across as a bait and switch, and I don't know if it always is or if it's a miscommunication. And I think that a good salesperson can, or a salesperson who's listening, can hit one or two firm questions and be able to know which way to go. It's whether the sales process is flexible enough to let them do that.
Okay, so we've spoke about evaluation, research, like when it actually comes to making a decision, like what concerns you about becoming dependent on a vendor? I know some of the CEOs I've spoke to at this point is, with so many new companies, especially in AI world, are they even going to be around in 5 years time? Like, do you have these concerns, and like what kind of research or questions are you asking to alleviate this?
Well, I know that that's often why somebody is looking for an open source piece of it. So that if the company is not around there, to know that the technology has a staying power. I frankly I don't think of that as as a main concern. I'm more concerned about, can they actually do what they say that they can do, and are they going to help us? So my main concerns really end up being, as I think a lot of companies, you often don't make a purchase until, um, you don't put the plaster on the broken bone until until the broken bone is like hanging off your arm, and then you're like, I really should have done this. I really should have done it. So it is, so I think that is much more of it. I think that there are pluses and minuses with starting with an earlier stage company. And frankly, I'm more concerned about, or I think of it much more of, the reason I keep going back to can they solve the problem is because there's a lot of new generation companies that can solve problems that legacy companies can't. So I look at it the other way of, and you have to understand, as a security company, I have a security veil that I'm looking at. And so I'm looking much more of, does it solve the problem, and has it been built in a secure way, or is it going to introduce a new vector, a new security risk, or is it actually solving a security risk that the legacy company has? So that's much more of where I'm focused if we're doing it from that assessment.
Okay, makes sense. These answers have been brilliant. Thank you so much for your time. I'm going to ask you one more question as a takeaway. So if you could give one piece of advice to B2B software marketers who are trying to target in specifically CEOs, what would that advice be?
Be succinct. If I get to say two things, I would say, give me something that shows me value from the beginning, and be succinct.
Thank you so much, Kris. That has been absolutely brilliant.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks for spending time with us on B2B and Flux. To learn more, head to somebodydigital.com.